Hello and welcome to the 13th episode of the Films Not Movies podcast with me, Aaron.
And me, Charlotte.
We are back after a month and a bit break. We've been around the world in less than 80 days. Well, I've not been around the world, but we've been away. So we are back, and this week we are talking about, well, this episode, because it's not going to be weekly episodes, I don't think. I think we're going to attempt to have consistent fortnightly episodes. Yep. So that's the release schedule we are aiming for. And what day this gets put out on, then we'll be aiming for that corresponding day 2 weeks after.
Easy
to remember. So this week we're talking about The Handmaiden, which is a Korean film, which is currently in cinemas and is directed by Chan-Wook. And we're also going to talk about Hell and High Water from last year.
Yep. So, very quick plot summary. A woman is hired as a handmaiden to a Japanese heiress who's super rich, but secretly she's involved in a plot to defraud her. So, it's set in Korea.
Yes, it's in Japanese-occupied Korea from the early 1900s, I assume. So, it's kind of a combination of Korean-speaking characters and Japanese-speaking characters, and a lot of both. Not that easy to my ear to be able to tell the difference between the two, but they are represented in different coloured subtitles, which I think does help the story a lot.
It does, yeah. And because a lot of characters speak both languages and flick in and out of them, because some characters are Koreans posing as Japanese people, and some are Korean people who wish they were Japanese people, and some are Japanese people who hate being Japanese and would rather speak Korean to their Korean handmaiden. So it's all a bit of a mix of both.
Yeah. So this is directed by, as I mentioned earlier, Chan-Wook, who you may know for directing the 2003 film Old Boy, also South Korean film.
The original Old Boy.
Yes. Not the one, I can't remember who it was directed by, didn't see it, didn't get great reviews. Also, the other parts of the Vengeance trilogy, which were Lady Vengeance and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, and also the English language film Stoker, which from a few years ago, which starred Nicole Kidman. So if you saw any of them, you might know what to expect. He's got a bit of a reputation for having extremely stylish looking films, but also go to the more extreme ends of cinema in terms of violence and
a bit weird.
And strange twists, but also rooted in good storytelling and good stories. They're not weird for the sake of being weird. Well, I don't think, not to my opinion, they are anyway. So this stars also, here's me butchering some names. Mi-hee Kim plays Hideko. Tae-ri Kim, who plays Suki, and Jung-woo Ha, who plays Fujiwara. I've tried my best.
So, having said that Chan-Wook is famous for amazing visuals, it most definitely lives up to that. I mean, this film is visually stunning. It's every frame is like a work of art, and there's some really unusual shots and angles which just kind of add to the beauty of the film, really. But having said that, it's not just a matter of style over substance. You know, it's a really great plot that reels you in from the beginning, even aside from how visually beautiful it all is to look at, and how visually beautiful the main two actresses are as well. You know, they're both stunning and incredible performances all round. Yeah,
the film's split into 3 acts or 3 parts. Yeah. And I think they are, especially between the first and the second 2 acts, there's a real shift in tone and how the film feels. The first act feels almost like quite a straight plot, which you can follow quite easily.
Quite simple, linear, because I got to the end of that and I thought, this is a straightforward, nice little film, and I like everybody, and I was expecting lots of graphic sex, and that hasn't happened, and then it all changed.
Yeah, well, the first part is almost just like a real straight crime thriller, really. They've got the crime they want to commit, they know what they plan it out in advance, and then it starts to unfold in front of you, and everything generally seems to be going to plan, and you think,
more or less,
this is all working out fine. There's a few quirky characters and stuff, and obviously we said the visuals look good, so there's plenty of things to make you think that this isn't completely straightforward. But then as soon as it hits the second act or the end of the first act, it just takes a turn, and then you realise, it completely
takes you aback, and you see everything with fresh eyes.
Yeah, and I actually found it quite, not harrowing, but I was a bit like, oh no, I thought
So
I was a bit like,
it really pulls the rug from under you.
Yeah,
'cause you're-
exactly. Pulls it from under you, and I was on my arse. And
Yeah.
I'd fallen over, like it was taking it from under me. So I
because
think,
you're rooting for the main characters,
Yeah.
and then it all flips, and the characters you think you know, you don't actually know, and you see other characters in different ways, and
Yeah,
you
in
think, oh,
different ways.
actually, this could be, I've been completely read in a different way, and yeah, very clever.
yeah, they do. There's a really interesting job of where you see a certain scene from one character's point of view in the first act, and you think, and you basically in their mind, even when they're not saying anything, it doesn't have them narrating over their thoughts, and then it'll show exactly the same scene from a different character's point of view, and it makes you think that person is really different. I don't know if they've used exactly the same footage or they've just filmed it enough to make them seem
Yeah.
like a completely different
And it just shows
character.
what you can do with editing, really, which
Yeah.
I know is a common complaint of things, characters who go into Big Brother and things like that, because you can just put a slightly different spin on all sorts of situations and paint somebody in a different way. But just the slight filter of seeing a situation differently just can completely transform a situation.
Yeah, completely change it. So across the three parts, the film changes a few times and goes from, as we said, seeming like quite a straight crime film to then descending into the more erotic side of it, which is certainly how it was heavily advertised and is heavily being talked about as that being such a huge component of it, where I don't actually think it's as big a part of it as it's made out to be.
I was kind of bracing myself for something that I might find a bit too much,
Yeah.
or a bit unpleasant, because I was worried that it might be sort of sexual violence, knowing that this is directed by who it is and that he does go in for strong violence. I was concerned those two elements might be combined, but they're not, which makes it all the more watchable for me, and those scenes weren't what I was expecting at all.
No.
So yeah, really enjoyable twists, and you're really, really interesting characters, even throughout all the different layers. You know, they're interesting to begin with, and then they become even more interesting, all of them.
Yeah.
So you are fully engrossed, and yeah, you do really find yourself recovering from the twists and being really unsure as to where things are going to go at each stage.
Yeah, as you say, recovering from the twists and having to resettle your mind and resettle your opinion on, okay, where I need to start following this again now. I can't linger too much on what's just happened because there's now more things happening and I've got to follow them. Though saying that, I didn't find it hard to follow. It's just each thing that changed was hard to recover from. Okay, I need to reset now and carry on. And I think that's part of what plays into it for me. Is it's quite a hard film to categorise. Like, normally you can say, right, okay, boom, this is a horror film, as we've said loads of times, or this is an action film, la, la, la. But start with it feels just like a crime, not caper, but a thriller.
Yeah, crime drama.
And then I've heard a lot of people describing it as an erotic thriller. And again, I think they're just tagging that on to make it sound more exciting. It is, I mean,
That's an element of it.
There is an element of it, but I wouldn't say that is how you should define it. And it's a crime film, and then it's also starts to teeter on the edge of certainly horror film elements if it never actually hits a horror film. So hard to categorise, but I think
certainly
that makes
a lot of menace and threats, and you know, a lot of the film is set in this big old mansion where Hideko lives and Suki goes to be her handmaiden, and it's very rich and dark, and she's lived there from a very young age and is set to marry this horrible old guy, and there's always a kind of, and the music is used to kind of build threat and tension. So just these sort of wobbly rising drum peals that kind of make you think, oh, this is not what it seems, and make you feel like there's a sort of lurking menace in the house.
Yeah, and on the contrary to that, really, there are funny moments. It's not all threat, and it's not all backstabbing or crime or anything like that. It's not all too intense. You actually find yourselves liking the characters a lot.
Yeah.
And there are quite a lot actually of funny little lines that they say to
very gentle humour. You know, it's not much laugh out loud, but because you empathise with them, you really warm to these characters. You find yourself kind of smiling along with them.
The type of little things that people might say to each other that would make each other laugh, or say something in a funny way that is quite amusing. And I think that plays into how well translated I assume the film has been. It's certainly translated in a way that makes sense to a British English audience. I think they certainly used colloquialisms, like things like bloody hell and stuff, which to start with I thought stood out a little bit, but then it's kind of it conveyed their feeling at that point pretty well, whereas it could have been so easy for them to use a different word there, and it would have sounded really weird.
Meant the translations were never stilted or awkward. It didn't feel like a translation, so you always fully understood the sentiment in every situation and the humour. But a lot of the humour came from the reactions as well. I think, the amazing faces of the two lead actresses registered everything that they were feeling, and you really felt it along with them. And even when one of the actresses is playing a very cool and sort of cold character, distant character, you're still sort of really drawn in to them both. And that was part of the magic of the film, really.
Yeah, I think it's worth giving them a mention individually for their performances, because I think it's those two that really steal the show, and they are really different performances, but then they play off each other really well, because as you say, the Hideko character is she's a bit childlike, but also a bit standoffish and a bit...
Yeah, she's aloof. She's had her whole childhood trapped in a house. And very wealthy, so she's always been sort of tippy-toed around. And then you've got a young sort of pickpocket, effectively.
Yeah,
who's...
plays the handmaiden and is a lot more world-wise and stuff. But
she's got such an open face, though,
And she isn't this cynical, hard-edged character. She's clearly a very nice person as well, despite the crime side of it. They
both open up in their own way throughout the film, and I think that's partly what this film is about. Each of them feels like they have a role to play, and they're trying to play that role, and then it all kind of peels away for different reasons.
When they realise they start to like each other more, they become themselves a bit more and let their guards down around each other a lot more. And I think that's partly why the film is so strong. And it's almost weird to think of a film from a director that's got a reputation for being so extreme and so violent and tough themes. It's actually quite a sweet personal story underneath it, which I don't think we saw as much. If you did see the film Stoker, there was a lot less of that going on.
That was a lot colder, I thought.
That was a lot colder. I guess that specifically was about the poor relationship between a mother and a daughter, wasn't it?
But funny, we've just said that, and one of the scenes that we've talked about that we absolutely loved, there's a scene where multiple sliding doors are opened one after the other. And it is a bit like that kind of peeling away, isn't it? The kind of different layers of the personalities that are allowed to come out, and
I think there's
layers of deception as well.
I think there's a lot of as we were talking about how visually stunning the film is, there's a lot of visual cues which they're either specifically there to represent something like that, or are left as a kind of trigger to think, well, you could interpret this as this part of the story or this part of the story, but they definitely seem very precise in that they've been put in these places where they correspond to the story, and there's a scene, and you may not notice them, or you may notice them a lot, but they work really well. Yeah,
they do. It doesn't seem like he's just kind of showboating. It all seems part of a whole that works together beautifully.
So a few little criticisms of it. I think the film's maybe slightly too long, and then maybe some of the sex scenes were lingered a little too long. But these aren't major criticisms, and they have been criticised a lot more by other people for being too voyeuristic. But as you said before, if anything, I think you had less issues with them than me, but it was only that I thought they were just a little bit too long. But then a few of the other scenes, not sex scenes, just scenes in general, were a little bit overindulgent. So I think it did fit the overall feel of the film.
You could have trimmed it down a little bit and made it stronger, but not massively stronger.
No, and it wouldn't have been a lot of trimming, maybe 5-10 minutes out the total running time.
I agree.
But not huge chops like I wish they did with some films. Yeah, so a really good one. So in terms of scores for me, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I think this is a really good film. I've liked stuff he's done in the past, but I think this is definitely an improvement on Stoker for me. And I did really like that one as well. And quite different to Old Boy, but really...
See the themes.
Right up there in terms of some of his best work as a director. And a film that I think looks great, really well acted, and a really great story at the heart of it, which makes it so strong. Yeah.
It's quite... I would really love to be able to talk about this film with spoilers in, because there's so much we can't mention. I'm going to give this a 4 as well. Teetering on the brink of giving it a 5, actually, but it's for a couple of reasons. It's not quite there. I felt some of the scenes could have been a bit stronger. Some of the old guy that Hideko lives with and is kind of betrothed to was not quite right for me.
No.
But really, very, very few weak points. And I've thought about it a lot, both in terms of the characters and all of it, really.
Yeah.
Beautiful music. We've listened to the score afterwards, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly.
And
We've not even
appreciated
mentioned
how
the
good it
score.
was.
And it's a really nice score that didn't stick out while we were watching it, but in a positive way. And afterwards, you mentioned, the music was really good, wasn't it? And I was thinking, oh, was it? And then start thinking, oh, yeah, there it fit really nice. There it fit really nice. But it doesn't overwhelm at all.
No, there's only one or two really kind of themey type pieces within it, and those ones really stood out to me and really enhanced the mood of the film.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of it was much more atmospheric, and that really helped to kind of build each scene. So it wasn't intrusive. It just did its job perfectly for me.
Yeah, and a big shout out also to the trailer for this film, which is really great, really well cut, and doesn't give anything away, but makes it look like it's going to be pretty much exactly like it is, but doesn't give anything away. So more trailers like that.
Yes, please.
Great.
So the second film we're going to be talking about is Hell and High Water. This is directed by David Mackenzie, and it stars Chris Pine and Ben Foster as the two brothers Toby and Tanner Howard, and also stars Jeff Bridges, who plays a cop, Marcus Hamilton. So top line summary: a divorced father, that's played by Chris Pine, and his ex-con older brother have resorted to a desperate team to try and save their family's ranch in West Texas.
Yes, exactly. And Jeff Bridges is, as mentioned before, the cop who is trying to foil their plans to... Because it's basically the knocking off banks. There's no spoiler.
Yeah.
You see it straight away. They're knocking off banks to buy out the ranch before they lose it.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bridges and his partner are the cops.
Trying to catch him.
So a simple plot, really. And it is a Western, and it's a modern-day Western, which I think is really good that they've just said, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, and you can get on board with it straight away. But it feels like a traditional Western, but it's set in the modern world, and it fits really nicely, I think.
I think they've done a really good job of it.
Yeah.
Because, like a Western, it is slow in pace, especially at the beginning. You know, it's not like there's bank shootouts every 2 seconds from the off. There's a lot of character building, and I think only Jeff Bridges could have played this role. It's absolutely perfect for him. He's a sort of lovable rogue. He's an old guy. He's nearly at retirement. He's almost like one last case.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. But he is full of swagger, and he's so set in his ways that but he's clearly extremely good at what he does.
Yeah.
So he can get away with being abrasive and really gets on his partner's back a lot.
Well, completely. I mean, he's Jeff Bridges, so the humour and the lovable, warm character, he just oozes that so well, despite the fact that he is kind of racist towards his Native American descent partner, and is clearly a massive pain in the arse to work with. He's a stick in the mud, he's old-fashioned, he's set in his ways, he won't try anything different. It's like, this is what we're going to do, I'm not going to hear anything different. Stubborn, but he's superb.
Yeah, as you said, I can't imagine anyone else playing it even remotely as well as he's done, and I think that's
his voice as well. It's the drawly Texas accent and the slow pace of it all. It's just perfect for him.
Yeah, and I think the other main characters in it, Chris Pine and Ben Foster, play their parts really well as well. They're really good contrast, because Chris Pine is the kind of strong, silent type, really, who's trying to do well by his family despite him clearly messing up in the past, whereas Ben Foster is the off-the-rails, completely unpredictable older brother who is just loves his little brother, but is absolutely loving the idea of going out and knocking off banks and messing it all up. Not necessarily messing things all up, but
he's a loose cannon.
He is a loose cannon, and it's completely unpredictable, but it just makes for a good trio of characters, even though they don't really have any interactions altogether. It's the buddy film of the two brothers in one way, and then the buddy film of the two cops as well, and then basically chasing each other around, one always trying to get one step ahead of the other. Yeah.
And if we've made it sound too simple, if those characters sound like stereotypes or the plot sounds too simple, don't think that it isn't like that. They're really great characters, and that's what pulls you through the film, really.
Yeah. I mean, scripted really well. They have great interactions between themselves, but then the story, as you said, the pacing is slow, but I think it moves at just the right speed that you all like. The film for me felt like it went by in about half an hour. I couldn't quite believe it.
It feels natural, the pacing. Like the story was really evolving almost in real time, that they were doing these things and then moving from A to B, and then they've caught up with them to this point, and at what point is it all going to come to a head? Because it obviously is all building towards a head. But the strength of this film, I think, is very much in the Game of Thrones style, not black and white characters. You know, the cops are not the good guys, they're not angels, the baddies, because they're Robin Hood style, stealing from the evil banks.
Yeah.
And obviously you support them and their cause, and they're doing it for good reasons. Nobody's black and white, and I didn't know who I wanted to win.
Yeah.
And that kind of conflicted me as it was all building towards the end. I was like, I don't know what I want to happen. I don't want anything bad to happen to any of them, and that is what makes this different. It's not a good cops versus horrible robbers.
Or the opposite. It's not completely lovable rogues against the man.
Against the law.
Yeah, exactly. You like all of them, and I think describing it as Game of Thrones is not something I'd thought of, but it does fit that mould perfectly of everyone's in the grey area.
Yeah,
and
all
just
flawed characters, and you love them all.
But you also, at some points, certainly want to start hating certain characters because of things that happen. And I think that those layers of complexity mean that quite a straight forward story blooms into this really great film because you just don't expect. You see the front cover, you see the cowboy hats, you see the title of it, you just think, I know what this is. And even though you may be able to predict the story, you can't predict anything that happens along the way, and certainly the characters. And I think that's, as you say, such a strength to this film.
And it's the performances that make that successful, really. I was really impressed with Chris Pine. I know Jeff Bridges is going to be good. I don't know that much about Ben Foster,
but he really stood out for me.
He was brilliant as well.
Because he plays a little bit of a one-dimensional character because he is this loose cannon, but he does it really well and really gives the film moments of levity, which it might be a bit too... Well, I mean, Jeff Bridges has his funny moments as well, but Chris Pine certainly doesn't really have his funny moments, so his brother being this ridiculous...
It's a lovely relationship between them.
Being quite ridiculous, it works really well, and the relationships between all the characters work really well.
I think Chris Pine really showed that he can do more than... superhero Kirk type characters.
Yeah, than just... Excellent. So we're going to talk about that one a little bit less, unless you've got any other talking points.
Not necessarily. I think I enjoyed the sort of Western setting of it. You know, the sort of lots of long shots. You know, the scenery is very much part of the film, and sort of wide views of Texas at sunset, and that's really quite integral to the film as well.
Yeah,
dusty tracks and all that kind of thing.
And there's not just a homage, but it sitting in the genre that it so unapologetically is, which is a Western. And I'm glad that they haven't thought, we need to do something different. We need to just do loads of quick, choppy shots. Because that's part of why people watch them, is to see these amazing desert scenes and these dusty track roads and men in Stetsons and stuff. That's all part of it.
But it didn't seem cheesy or cliched at any point, which... No,
it did.
Is really quite an impressive job.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give this one 4 as well. I absolutely loved this film. It was I didn't have high expectations. I saw it had been nominated for Oscars and stuff, but that doesn't necessarily tell you how good a film is. But this is just a really good sit down and watch this, and I can't see anyone not enjoying this.
No.
It's really well crafted film.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm also going to give it 4. It was brilliantly done and really enjoyed it, and enjoyed loving all of the characters, and I like the ending as well, which does sort of befit the grey area nature of the characters. It was a grey area sort of an ending as well, and I like that too.
Yeah, excellent. Great, so it's good to be back with a couple of really great films.
Yeah, fantastic. Go and see them both. Well, rent Hell and High Water and go and see it's just pretty much finished now, hasn't it? Get them both.
Just watch them.
Just watch them. Just watch them.
If they sound good, watch them. Great. So you will hear from us again in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that's the release schedule. And if we miss it, pull us up on it.
Yep.
Excellent. Great. Anything else?
Follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, as usual, FNM Pod. Facebook,
search
Films
for us
Not
on
Movies.
Facebook.
And you can listen to the episodes on YouTube if you search for Films Not Movies podcast, if that's better for you than audio. So, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
See you next time.
Bye.
See ya.